So in this video, what we will do, we will create a log framework. Okay. Now what is the purpose of this log framework? So we write console.log in JavaScript. Okay. This will help us in debug. But when your code is deployed in production, we don't have the luxury to see the console. Okay. So we'll not be able to know what has happened. So for this purpose, what we will do, we will write our own logging mechanism. So it will log what function executed, what object it has encountered, where it has encountered error, right, at what timestamp, at what function, what is going on. So we will have all the detailed log. Okay. So this is the log framework that will help us doing debugging in production, because we don't have the access to console. So if we are writing console.log, that is not enough. We have to build a log mechanism which will log important information, and later on we should be able to retrieve those logs. And this video is part of the ongoing API masterclass. So if you want, you can check this playlist. Right here we have started working with MongoDB and schema. Then we worked on Redis. We learned about middleware, authentication, authorization, rate limiting, validation, and we have covered so many things. And now one more video is getting added to this one, that is log management or log framework. Okay. So feel free to browse by this playlist, and subsequently I'll be bringing more and more chapters to this playlist. Okay. Now let us start with the log framework. So I'll give you a small demo. So I'll come to create participants. Okay. And I'll try to create one participant. So here, if you see the body, we have the required data. Okay. So I will get a log ID. So I will take this log ID. We'll go to 8081 port/log, and I'll pass this log ID and I'll press enter. Okay. And if I do a pretty print, we will see detailed log step by step what has happened. So if you see log message creating participant in repository, and this is the object. Then creating participant, this is the object. Successfully created participant, this is the object. Okay. Then what it is doing, invalidating Redis key participant. So here we got a detailed understanding of the code execution that happened when I ran the create participants. Okay. So having access to this log ID can help us debug issues when it is in production, or when we don't have the luxury to put a debugger or put a console log statement. In that scenario, you will be able to clearly see how the code is flowing. Of course, you have to add this log message in each and every function. As much log as you want, you can add, and based on that the log will be displayed. Okay. So this is what we are going to build. This will help us in better debugging. Okay. So for this, let us first understand the architecture that we are going to follow. Then we will start coding this one. So this is the architecture diagram. Okay. So we have our code block that is getting executed. Okay. Here somewhere we have console.log. Okay. This is what we want to remove, the dependency. Okay. Now we have a particular message here. Okay. That we are doing in the console log. Now what we want is it to be persistent so that we can later check. So one obvious way is to store it into our main database. Right. So we have a movie database. Okay. So we have one option to store it into the movie database. Okay. And then we can, so this will be based on a log ID. Okay. And based on this log ID, we will be able to retrieve the log information. So this is very standard way, but now there are two problems in this. First, we will be writing multiple log messages, right? It is not one or two log message. So when we are repeatedly writing data into the database, our request and response cycle will become very slow. So this is not something that we want. Okay. Second problem is, if we are storing the log information in our main database and we are trying to retrieve the log information, it will put load into the main database. My main database should always be busy serving the business need. here it should be busy serving the movies and participants, right? So storing it in the main database is not a good idea. So the obvious solution is to have another database. Okay, so let us call it as analytics database. Okay, here we will store the log information. So instead of storing it in the main database, we will store it in the analytics database. Okay, so this will solve one part of the problem. Okay, so when we are retrieving the log, we are not overloading our main database, but the problem with the request response cycle is still there. Okay, that means we are still writing data to the database, right? So when we are writing multiple information to the database, it will of course slow down the request response cycle. Okay, so for that, what we will do, we will not directly write the log into the database. Okay, what we will do, we will introduce a queuing service. Okay, so this is a queuing service. So what we will do, instead of us directly writing it to the database, what we will do, we will write our data to the queue. Okay, and then we will forget about it. What happened in the queue, we will not consider. All we will do is write the data to the queue, and writing the data to a queuing service is much faster compared to writing it to the database. Okay, so here we will just simply put it to the queue and come back. We are not bothered who will process the log. Okay, now since we are pushing the data to the database, what we have to do, we have to write another script. Okay, this will be log consumer. So what this will do, each and every queue, each and every data that is coming, this JS file or this log consumer will process, and this guy will store it into the database. Okay, so here what happened, we decoupled the two system. One is our log processor and one is our log consumer. We are not directly storing it into the database, we are pushing it to the queue, and someone else will then again read it from the queue and store it into the database. So we have decoupled it. We are not waiting for the DB commits to happen, so our request and response cycle will not become slow. Okay, now so we are getting a big advantage out of this. Now what is the disadvantage? Disadvantage is this log will not be processed in real time. Okay, there might be possible that there are multiple API hits are happening, and at a time lot of logs are being written to the queue, but the rate at which we are writing the data to the queue is greater than the rate at which we are able to process the log data from the queue. Okay, so here we might not get the real time logs. That means as soon as my request response cycle is completed and I get a log ID, it might be still in the queue and being processed. Okay, it might take 1 minute or 2 minutes or some minute. Okay, it will not be real time. But is that actually a disadvantage? No, right? Because log is kind of a secondary information to us. Even if we are getting it 10 minutes late, that's okay. But in turn, what we gain an efficient system in which we are able to process large amount of logs. So having the log in real time is obviously not a big requirement. Okay, so we will just push the log information to the queue and come back. Now someone else will read it from the queue and push it to the analytics database. And then what we will do, now we should be able to read the data from the analytics database. So for that we already have an express app that is serving the business need. Now I don't want to use the same express app because it will create a bottleneck on the main Node.js process. Okay, so for that what I will do, I will create another express app. Okay, and this guy will be responsible to retrieve the log by log ID. Okay, so this new express app, or with the help of this new express app, will be able to fetch the log based on the log ID. Okay, we will not bother the main business process or the main business Node.js application. Okay, so here what we are doing, we are decoupling the system. Okay, so we have one app and one database that is serving the business need, and that main app is passing some data to the queue. Now there is a log parser or log consumer that is fetching the data from the queue and pushing it to the analytics database, and again we are reading the information through another express app. Okay, so this is fairly efficient system for log processing. Okay, and this is the architecture that we are going to build. So now let us jump into the code and start building this one. And here for the queuing service, what we are going to use? We are going to use RabbitMQ. So the first thing that we have to do is to set up RabbitMQ, and of course we'll do it through the Docker Compose file. So what I will do, I'll open the Docker Compose, and we already have Mongo and Redis here. So what I will do, I'll add another service. Okay. So for this, what name I will give? I'll say RabbitMQ. Okay. Then it will take a image name. So what is the image name? RabbitMQ colon 3 dash management. Okay, this is the official RabbitMQ image name. Okay, so if you check the official Docker Hub documentation for this RabbitMQ, you will find this name. Okay, then port mapping. So what I will do, I will map one port in which the default RabbitMQ server runs. Okay, that is 5672 and map it to 5672. So I'll say 5672. Okay. Now with this being done, this RabbitMQ is available in our Docker setup. So for this, now to run this, what I will do, I will say Docker compose up. So if you scroll to the top of this console, you will see this Mongo and RabbitMQ. So RabbitMQ is now running as part of our Docker Compose. Then what I will do, I will come to the dev server and I will start that one. I will say npm run dev. Okay, so let our server running in the background. Okay, now we need few dependencies to be installed in order for us to work with the RabbitMQ. So I will install those dependency. Okay, so I will say npm install. Okay, so the first dependency will help us to work with the RabbitMQ. Okay, so amqplib. Okay, this is the name, and I want to add one more package. So this package will help us in generating a UUID. So if you know UUID, it is a unique identifier, and for each log we want to have a unique ID so that we can store it in the database and identify it. So for that, what I will do, I will use a library called tinyUID. Okay, so tiny then UID. So I will install these two dependency. Okay, so this is installed. Then I will come to my environment variable, and here, like how I have my Mongo URI, I will add a RabbitMQ URI. Okay, and if you see what is the format, this is the protocol, this is the host, and this is the port. So I'll also do the same thing here. So what is the protocol? So here the protocol will be AMQP. Okay, colon // okay, what is the host? Of course it is localhost. It is localhost. And what is the port? Port I can take it from here. Okay, so this is the RabbitMQ URI. So using this URI, we will be able to connect to the RabbitMQ. So where we should write? So here we have the config. So I am connecting to the database. I am connecting to the Redis. In the same line, I will connect to the RabbitMQ. So I will say RabbitMQ.js. Okay, then let us write the connection logic. So I'll say import AMQP from AMQP lib. Okay. Then I will create a channel. So this is the channel to which will push the logs. Okay. So I will say channel equals to, for now I'll keep it as null. Okay. Then I want to define the queue name. Okay. So we might have multiple queue to process different information, right? One of our information that we need to process is the log information. Okay. So I will create a channel. So I will create a queue and name it something. So that name I want to store it in the constant. Okay. It's a good practice to store this kind of string in the constant so that we can use it in multiple places. Okay. So I will say export const, okay, log queue equals to, I'll just simply say this is log. Okay, this is the log queue. So this queue will process the log information, and there might be scenarios where we are trying to process multiple information and each of them will go to multiple queue in the RabbitMQ server, because RabbitMQ server can have multiple queue and we have the luxury to push it to a particular queue that we want. Okay. So I have just named a queue as log. Okay. Now since I am in the constant file, I'll add one more constant. Here I want to add the database name in the constant. Now which database? We already have a main database of movie. Then to store the log information, we will create another database instance, because of course we don't want to put too much load on the main server because of we are trying to process logs. Okay. So for this reason, these logs will be stored in a different database and that name I want to put it in the constant. Okay. So for this, what I will do, export const, okay, I will say log db name. Okay. And what name I should give? I'll call it as analytics. Okay. So this is a database, and in this analytics database we will have one collection called logs. Okay. Maybe if you want, you can add more collections like different HTTP server status, or per day how many 500 HTTP status encounter. So this kind of analytics information we can store, but for purpose of this tutorial, what I will do, in the analytics database we'll just have one collection called logs. Okay. So this is done. Then I'll come back to my RabbitMQ connection. Right here, what I will do, I will import, okay, log queue. So this is the log queue name. So this is the queue that we will try to connect. Okay. Then what I will say, I'll create a function called connect RabbitMQ. Okay. And of course this will be an async function, and I'm making it as a arrow function, and I will wrap this in a try catch block. Okay. Now let us quickly complete the catch block. So here I will say console.error. Okay. I will say failed to connect to RabbitMQ. Okay. So this is very simple. Okay. Then I will say, now I'll try to connect. Okay. So I will say const connection equals to await. Okay. Then we will use the import amqp dot, it has a connect function. Okay. And this connect function will take a URI. So where we will get the URI? So we will get it in the env file. So RabbitMQ URI. So I'll copy this one and I will say process.env.paste. That means RabbitMQ. Okay, so I will save this one. Now what we will do, in this connection we will create a channel. Okay, so for that what I will do, we already have a channel variable, so I will say channel equals to await connection dot, okay, create channel. Okay, so this will create the channel for us. Then we will see whether the channel is created or not, or basically we'll do an assertion. Okay, so I will say await channel dot assert queue. Okay, and here I will pass the log queue. So this will basically see if this channel has this queue configured. Okay, then here if we want, we can display a message. So I will say console.log. Okay, I will say successfully connected to RabbitMQ. Okay, RabbitMQ. Okay, then so this is the RabbitMQ connection function, and here I have to export in this one. So I'll say export. I will export two things. One is the connection function, that is connect RabbitMQ, and the channel. Okay, so that we can use this channel later. Okay, so I will export these two things. Now we are successfully added the function to connect it to the RabbitMQ. So I will close all of this. Then I will come to index, and here what I will do, I will, after this connect to the database, I will import connect. Okay, so connect RabbitMQ. This is coming from config RabbitMQ. Then here what I will do, after this await connect to the DB, I will also await connect to the RabbitMQ. So if you see, there is an error constants. Okay, so somewhere in RabbitMQ.js, if you see, it should be constant.js. Okay, so I have saved that one. So if you see, successfully connected to the DB, successfully connected to RabbitMQ. Okay, so now our RabbitMQ connection is completed. What is next? So next what we will do, so if you remember, we have installed a package called tinyUID. So what this will basically do, this will generate a IDE, and based on this IDE we will store the log. Now in order to have the ID across all our middleware and request response cycle, I should be able to attach the request exactly before any of the middleware starts, right? So that in the request I can attach the ID, and after all the middleware and controllers are completed, I should be able to get the ID from the request and add it to the response. So when someone is sending a request, and when it will get the response, in that response we will have the log ID. Okay, based on that log ID, someone can query the database to see what happened, or how many logs for that particular log ID are available. Okay, I will say import, okay, UID from tinyUID. Okay, then what I will do, here before any of the routes get executed, I will say app.use. Okay, and I'll write a middleware here. So this will be the middleware function. Okay, so this will take request, response, and next. Okay, and here what I will do, request dot log ID equals to UID, and I will pass 7. That means this function will give me a UID of 7 characters long. Okay, and I will call next. And if you want, you can move it to the middleware folder as a separate function. Okay, then here if you see this ping method, what we are doing, we are sending a message. Now along with this message, what I can say, I can say log id equals to request dot log id. Okay, now if you come to postman and come to ping, right, what will happen? Now if I send a request, you will get a log id. Okay, so this is what we want. So this log id we have access across our middleware and service because this is attached to the request, right? So this request is available in service as well as all the middlewares in between. Okay, so we will use this log id to store log messages. Okay, so this part is done. Now we should be able to produce the logs. So for this, what I will do, I will create a log producer. That means basically a function that will take the log information and push it to the queue. Okay, so in the lib folder, I will create a new file called as log producer.js. Okay, and here I want to have two methods. Okay, one is log message and one is log error. Okay, both of them will publish this information to the queue. Okay, so first what I need to import the channel. So I will say import, okay, channel from config rabbitmq, right? And I will also take the log name, otherwise how we will know which log we have to push, right? So I will say import log queue from constants.js. Okay, then I want to have a function called export const log message. Okay, so this will take a log id, log message and a log object. Okay, so these are the three things that I want to store. Okay, so this will be an arrow function. Okay, so what this will do, this will call a publish function. Okay, I'll write the definition for that one very shortly, but I'll also add the body for log error. Okay, so this will also take log id, log message and log object. These two are ditto same thing, but one is responsible for logging error messages and the other one is responsible for writing normal message. Okay, so what I will do, I'll call a function, and this function doesn't exist now, but I'll write the definition very soon. So I'll say publish log, I'll say publish log. Okay, and what this publish log will do, this will take the log id, log message, okay, log object and the log type. So I'll say this is a normal message log. Okay, and the same thing this log error will also do, but the only difference is instead of this log we'll say error. Okay, then we'll write the definition for this publish. Okay, so const publish log equals to it will take log id, log message, log object and type. Okay, so type could be log or error. Okay, so this will be an arrow function. Okay, so I'll create a log object. Okay, so this will be our log id, log message, okay, log object, then type, then I'll say created at, okay, this will be a new date. That means at what time this log was created, okay. And what I will do, I will say channel dot send to queue, okay, and which queue, of course to the log queue. And what data will be log, this log object, okay. But this is an object, right? And queue will usually take a string. So what I will do, I will say json dot stringify, okay. So I'll stringify this and send it. But also the string, the queue will take it in buffer format, not as a plain text string, okay. So I will say buffer dot from, okay. So it will buffer the stringified version of this log object, okay. So this will push the log, okay. Now what we will do, we will take this log message and we say we will come to index, okay. And here if you see ping, there is a console log, right? So we don't want this. Instead what we want, we should be able to log the message like this, okay. So if you see what this is taking, log id, okay. So from where we will get the log id, so we will say const log id equals to request dot log id or empty string, okay. So first thing that I need is a log id that I should be able to pass, then the log message, okay. So this is the log message, and here we should be able to pass an object just for debugging purpose. So I will say test, okay, and I will say ping, okay, fine. So where it is throwing the error, so rabbitmq in log producer, okay. So it should be rabbitmq.js, right? Now server is started. Now if we come here and if we hit this ping message, what this will do, this will log, okay, log, where this will log, this will log to this publish log, and this publish log will send it to the queue. Now the log producer is done. Now we should be able to write a log consumer, okay, which will read the data from the log queue. So for this what I will do, I will say I'll create a new file and I will say log consumer.js, okay. Here let us do few import, okay. So import channel and connect to rabbitmq and rabbitmq.js, okay. Then import, okay. So log q, so that I know which queue to read the data from, okay. So I will write a function, okay, export const, I'll say start log consumer, okay. So async, okay. So first what I will do, I have to connect to the rabbitmq. So I will say await connect to the rabbitmq, okay. Then I'll say channel dot consume, okay. Consume, which queue we have to consume, we have to consume the log queue, and this will do a callback function in which we will have the message. Okay, so I will say if message is not equals to null. Okay, what I will do, I will say const log data equals to json dot parse, okay, message dot content dot toString. Okay, so this toString will convert it to string from the buffer format. Okay, so if you remember, we are sending it in buffer format. So this toString will convert it to string from buffer, and we are doing JSON stringify. So JSON.parse will parse it into an object from the string. Okay, then here I will do just a console log to see what information we are getting. Okay, so I'll say log data, and I will say channel dot acknowledge, okay, message. That means this consumer will acknowledge to the channel that this message is received. Okay, then just to see if it is working or not, what I will do, I will call this function here. Okay, this is a async function, right? So as such, I don't have to do anything on the then block, but just for safety, I'll attach a catch block. So I will say error, okay, console dot error, okay, failed to consume queue. Okay, for now we will add only this much. Okay, then what we will do, we will take another terminal. Okay, and here we will run this log consumer. Okay, so I will say node, okay, node src, then lib slash log consumer.js. So successfully connected to the RabbitMQ, okay, which is coming from here. Okay, then what we will do, this log producer is producing to the queue, and if you see here the ping message, okay, this we are logging it to the queue. So now if I come and hit this ping method, okay, what will happen? See, this log is generated, right? So what it has the log id, which is same as this one, right? Then it has a log message, then it has a log object, right, which is this one, right? And what is the type? So this is a log type, and at what time it was created. Okay, so if I hit this one again, this log will be created again, right? So what is happening here? Here I am creating a log id, and I am pushing few information to this log message. This log message is publishing this log to the queue, right? And there is a queue consumer. Okay, what this is doing, if there is a message, okay, read it. So this is just the example of the ping method. Now let us do the same thing with a different method. Okay, so we will go to controllers, then we will go to participants. Okay, and here let us do create participants. Okay, here what we will do, we will add some logs. Okay, so first we need to extract the log id. Okay, so I will say const log id equals to request dot log id. Okay, now based on this log id, I'll write my first log message. Okay, so what I will do, it will first take the log id. Okay, then it will take the log message. So I'll say creating participants. Okay, then what will be the log object? So I can send that name, age, and role. So when I will check the logs, I will see, okay, creating participants with this log object. Okay, then here create participant by name. Okay, so I will come inside this function. Okay, and this will take the log id as a new parameter. Okay, so here I will say create participant by name. Okay, here I will take the log id. Okay, then I will say log message. Okay, I will say log id and creating participant in the repository. Okay, and here also I will pass the object name age role. Okay, then I will copy this one. Okay, and after this save I will say successfully created participant. Okay, and here I will pass the result object. Okay, so I will save this one result object and successfully. Okay, then this is done. I will come here this invalidate key. Okay, so here also I will pass the log id. Okay, I will save this one. I will come here to invalidate key. Okay, here also I will take the log id. Okay, then I will add a log message here. Okay, so log msg. Okay, it will take log id, then I will say invalidating. Okay, invalidating Redis key. Okay, and what will be the key name? So I will say dollar. Okay, I will say key. Now I'll convert it to template literal. Okay, so that I can use this kind of concatenation. Okay, and what will be the object? Remain empty object, because anyways we are not storing any object here. Okay, so this is the log flow. Okay, so from the controller, okay, from this service method we are doing a log. In the repository method also we are doing a log, and here in the invalidation, in this invalidation section also we are doing a log. Okay, and this result, along with this result object, will pass the log id. Okay, now we will come to postman and we will come to participants and we will try to create a participant. Okay, so what I will do, I will take some space here. Okay, so I will send the request, but before that what I have to do, I have to authenticate myself. So I'll come to login and send the request. Okay, then here I'll get the token. So I will copy this one, then I'll come to create participants. Okay, authorization, and I will send copy this one and paste it and save it. Okay, then I'll come to body and I'm sending the information. Okay, then I will take some space in the console and I will send the request, and it is saying permission. Okay, so what I will do, I will go to database. Okay, then I'll come to movies, I'll come to user. Okay, and here I will change it to admin. Okay, and I will update it. Now I'll have the permission. Okay, so I will send the request. Okay, so if you see there is a log id. Okay, so if you see, this is the log id that we are generating and this is the previous one. So this is the new log id. So on this log ID, we have creating participants with this object. Okay, then creating participant in the repository. Okay, then successfully created participant, and this is the object that we got from the database. Then this is saying invalidating key participants. So this is a step-by-step flow that I am able to visualize. Okay, see what is happening when I am trying to send a create participant request. Okay, so this kind of information is very handy when you are trying to debug something in the production. Okay, so this clearly tells me successfully created participants. We might not be able to successfully create the participants for some error, so will be so this log will be missing, so we'll immediately understand, okay, something is failing at the repository level. Okay, so this is a step-by-step flow or a visual picture of how our code is flowing internally without doing console log or without doing debug when you are in the production environment. Okay, now we'll keep this video here because this is getting long and we have a still big amount of concepts to cover, and if you have any suggestion, feel free to put it in the comment section.